It's time for us to see the next discussion. Let's talk about what the issues are right now, the eyes. Now, the eye is the most developed sensory organ in the body. Now, with millions of persons losing their eyesight, more than 50% of it is caused by glaucoma. Now, the 6th of March to the 12th of March marks World Glaucoma Week to raise awareness on the severity of this disease. And through a series of engaging worldwide activities, patients, eye care providers, health officials are expected to contribute to sight preservation and to alert everyone on the need to have regular eye checks in order to detect glaucoma as early as possible. That is the crux of our discussion. Now, so joining me now is Chairman, Nigerian Optometric Association, Lagos State Chapter, Dr. John Samsedi. Doc, it's good to have you join me this morning.
Thank you very much and good morning.
Good. I'm so happy you're here today because we need to talk about these issues of the eyes.
Okay.
A lot of us don't, when they talk about going for regular checks, that on one, Nigerians are not very good with regular checks on one hand.
Okay.
Then narrowing it down to the eyes. I've not seen any of my friends or colleagues or anyone who has said, I'm going for regular eye checks, except
when there's an issue.
There's an issue, and so on. But talk to us basically, how important is the eye and how should we care for the eye and how careless are we about the eyes and how much do we not know about the eyes? Let me put it all this way.
Thank you very much again. There's so much people don't know about the eyes. Like you said in your introduction, it's the most developed sensory organ. Contributes about 80% of the information you get. So you can imagine a world without 80% of that information. Just picture, if our viewers could just picture themselves without sight for a minute. So you can imagine if you were in a very dark place and then the lights go out and there's what we call light to dark adaptation before it affects. Imagine that feel when someone wakes up in the morning and there is no light and he feels like what has happened to my eyes, and it begins to rub until maybe a ray of light comes in and he'll be like, oh okay, I've not lost my vision.
Exactly.
Vision is an intrinsic. It's so important that it affects every level of development from when the child is born to when it's 3 months, when it's 6 months, to when he goes into preschool, to school, to when you start working. It's so important that we cannot overemphasize the role of vision in our day-to-day, living. And unfortunately, we take this for granted. As individuals, as corporate organizations, as government, it's not properly addressed. And we can see it in the way we treat our vision, in the way we treat the eye care professionals, the way we treat doctors, the way we treat professionals around the globe, especially in Nigeria now. And that is why, globally, this week has been dedicated to making emphasis on the need for people to pay attention to their vision. I'll quickly define what glaucoma is. Glaucoma is the leading cause of irreversible blindness. Mark my word, irreversible blindness. Wow. I'm going to break it down because I promised you I'm going to make it easy for everybody to understand.
I feel like I'm in the class right now.
Because when somebody says glaucoma, it looks like one
big
word
thing somewhere.
Okay. Yeah. Now, the eyes have different structures. One very important structure is what we call the optic nerve. The optic nerve is the second cranial nerve. Sorry, I'm trying to, you can't run away from this jargon. So it's the second cranial nerve, which makes it very, very, very crucial, very, very important. I call it the connecting point between your eye and your brain. Okay. The truth is that for vision to be complete, your brain plays a very active role
in interpreting whatever the eye sees.
So if I were to give a very good illustration, remember those days of Nightel. Many people in this generation they cannot understand. But in the days of generation, you had a lot of cables that will run from your house down to the outside pole and then to the Nightel station itself and then on. So just imagine there is a severance of the wires from the pole outside your house. When you pick up the phone then to dial, there's no dialing tone. There's no dialing tone. So that's what we're talking about now. So what happens is glaucoma is actually a group of diseases. It's not just one disease, it's a group of diseases that affect the back of the eye, which we call the optic nerve, you know, for easy explanation. Now, it affects it due to buildup of intraocular pressure. So imagine a pot of boiling water. When you take the pot, the kettle, off the source of heat, what happens is that there's no longer much pressure inside. But if you leave it and the fire keeps coming in, what happens is that it keeps
boiling.
Yes, it keeps boiling and boiling. So that's what happens in glaucoma. When the outflow is not equal to the inflow of intraocular pressure, which is the aqueous humor, like I'm trying not to go through technical so that everybody, so just imagine let me break it down. The water inside the eye, inflow is not equal to outflow. Now that leads to buildup of pressure, which now causes damage on the optic nerve. And once that nerve
when you're talking about water, is there water that is supposed to be, you know, is there water generated in the eye or within the eye?
It's called the aqueous humor. So it is formed in the ciliary body. Okay. Now,
what is that water? What is it for?
That helps to keep the pressure. That's why if you palpate, if you push it in, it doesn't sink. It keeps that from that pressure. There's also another gel called the vitreous, but the focus now is on the aqueous. So if the inflow is not equal to the outflow, it causes a buildup of pressure, which causes damage to the optic nerve fibers behind the eyes. And unfortunately, it is irreversible. And there is a type of glaucoma, because there are different types of glaucoma, primarily two types, the open angle and the closed angle glaucoma. The open angle is more deadly. We call it the silent thief of sight, because it doesn't come with any symptom, any sight. Most times, people only discover after 80% of irrecoverable vision has been lost. And that is why we always advise, check yearly, see clearly, check yearly. That is annual checkups. Now, for already established cases of glaucoma, your eye doctor will come up with a routine plan or schedule. Now, when I talk about tests, now we need to get this clear. I am not talking about those tests you go out for eyeglass screening. No. No, that is not what I'm talking about. They are not the same thing. Because most people are deceived, especially in our climes, and they think that when they go and they sit down and they just read the VA chart, that's what we call it, the ABC chart, as important as it is not a diagnostic tool for screening glaucoma. Yes, usually that's just for basic vision tests and for refractive error tests. Because there are different categories of disease. Maybe on another show we could talk about refractive errors and corneal problems and all that. But now we're talking about irrecoverable loss of sight. Now, this is how dangerous glaucoma is. If glaucoma is an arm robber, which I call it, once it comes in and it steals, say you have 100,000, which is the eye, and it steals 50,000, there is no EFCC, no police can recover that 50,000. All the doctors can do is to ensure that the remaining 50,000 is intact. That's my easy way of breaking it down.
So that's 50,000. If I have to use your analysis, is it done by a surgery?
Now, usually when glaucoma is diagnosed, one of the first things is using eye drops, prostaglandins and beta blockers. I'm careful not to mention any of those because people are very quick.
Just go to the pharmacy or
and
the
it's not
chemist
right.
And then buy this,
because like I said, there are different types of glaucoma, different shades. And for different age groups, the most affected are usually from 35 years upwards. You have a huge, about 76 million globally are affected in that age group now, but you have juvenile glaucoma, you have infantile glaucoma and all that. So
let's talk about the everyday habits. We are all exposed to different kind of things in the works that we do, either as a motorcycle rider or a taxi driver, or you work in a place that has radiation. Whatever the thing is, in our daily lives, we're exposed to different things. Make us understand, what are the things that threaten the eye?
Ignorance, number one. Ignorance. Okay, that's why I started with check yearly, see clearly. The doctor is your friend.
Oh yeah. I remember mom used to say that.
The doctor is your friend.
All right.
Okay.
But they say eat apple a day and keep the doctor away. Right.
Well,
but the doctor is still our friend.
Yes. Of course, when you talk about eating healthy, it's very, very important. You need to eat healthy. And we're talking about a wide range of healthy diet, you know, from foods rich in vitamin A and vitamin C. Okay, talk about. And the truth is, most times we run away from these foods. If I tell you things like cucumbers, cabbages, carrots, you know, most of the time we want to eat the pounded yam, begiri, but when they now go to the salads and all those things,
very few persons like that.
Yes, if you go in a buffet, what you see people attack
the heavy
is
one,
the moi moi. You know, you see the plates and people, and you look at the plates for the salads and the celeries.
They're still there.
It's still intact.
Yeah.
And that's what actually gives you, you know, the needed vitamins. Because when you say, "Oh, I have leaf in my egusi soup," you've steamed the nutrients away. Ooh. There's an ideal way to make it still presentable. So if you put it in, it shouldn't cook more than a minute or two. It should still be healthy. But you know, our local style of cooking will boil very well, boil the nutrients away. So they should come. See, the people in your studio are laughing. So it should come, you know, and then we should go for fruits, nuts, walnuts. I'm talking about generally now.
Yeah, exactly.
We should embrace these things. When you see these people selling these things, you should go after them. You know, in fact, there's this research they did some time ago, I think as far back as 2001, where they discovered orogbo from bitter cola. You know, now I'm very careful mentioning these things because people now can go and buy a basin of bitter cola and say, the doctor said it will. What I'm just trying to say is that it's the totality of the balanced diet that will form, you know, your body being able to build resistance. However, when you talk about glaucoma, there is a strong hereditary component. It has more to do with hereditary than to do with what you eat and what you don't eat. Of course, having your normal sleep, having safe exercises and things like that will contribute to your being well, you know. But when you talk about things like I said, open angle glaucoma, it affects people of our race more than people of the other race.
Why is that?
Yes, because there's what we call the trabecular mesh, like a sink, where that water I talked about, the aqueous, drains in and out of the eye. For us, because of the dense melanin pigmentation that makes our skin dark, it sort of plays with it and distorts the drainage out of the eye. So that's what causes it. Why for open and closed angle glaucoma, it affects Caucasians or Asians more than us. We, for the open angle, it affects blacks more than the other side. So the only way you can really secure it is by regular checks. Of course, like you said, the everyday things, things like the amount of lights coming into your eye, exposure to dust, you know, things that causes things like allergy and things like that. You want to make sure you get proper guidance, proper counseling. And see, there's this general trend that is going on now. It's called Dr. Google. Okay. It's very dangerous. People quickly run to Google.
Exactly.
When they have
get
signs
any
and
kind
symptoms.
Of information. Yeah. They become doctors on themselves.
Well, I say it's bad. It's not bad. It's good. But the truth is, you must have. There's open information and there's closed information, which means there's information that is just out there, and some people just push information there without having proper research to back all those things. Some people tell you it's cold water causes this, hot water causes this, but when you do adequate research, you find out all these are not true. For me, what we want to is, the whole idea of this is to stimulate debate and discussion. For instance, we talked about the screening that people go for in churches, in mosques. We've been trying to engage CAN and PFN. Don't just allow any Tom, Dick, and Harry come into your church and take the people's eye for granted. Most of the time, it's hunger that is causing it. That person wants to make quick money. It's not because he's really interested in the sight of those people. Let's call a spade a spade. You are in the office and somebody just comes with $2 and he wants to check your eye. What we should do is raise the awareness, create such a strong awareness. We have LCDAs in Lagos, for instance, where you have primary health centers. The government can do their best to make sure they employ, you know, eye care providers, optometrists, ophthalmologists in all these centers. We also have a dearth of professionals now. So many are running away for greener pastures now. So they have to come up with strategies to keep these brains in-house, because training people with 5, 10, 20 years experience is not easy. What you now have is just people coming out of school and coming into the labor market. They may not be as experienced as those who have been there. But both of us know now that in this studio, maybe 2 people have already applied to travel abroad as we're sitting here. So that's the truth. And that's why, there is the government input, there is the NGO input, and there is the individual input where you take your destiny into your hands and say, look, I'm not going to take my sight for granted. We have the health center. So if you say, oh, the privates are too expensive, most because I ask the question, how expensive is your vision? How cheap? Many people place value on Ashoebi and things like that than having a yearly budget to say, okay, I want to look after my health, like you talked about, not to talk of the eye and things like that, which is very, very important.
All right. Now, when make us understand a little bit. When the issue of glaucoma is setting in, how long does it take before it begins to manifest for the person to know that, okay, I have some issues?
It varies from individual to individual.
Okay.
It could vary from 1 month to 10 years.
Whoa.
Yes. People could get blind from glaucoma in a month, and people could get blind from glaucoma in 5, in 10 years. And that is why checkup. Now, when I say checkup, these are some of the tests to look out for. You have, of course, your entry VA test. Then every doctor will take a device called an ophthalmoscope, either direct or indirect, the one you wear on your head, and look in. The other one looks like a torchlight. It's really not a torchlight. It puts it on the eye, and then it looks into the eye. What he's doing is trying to observe the optic nerve and the structures in the eye to make sure there is no deviation from normal. Because I remember when we were in school, we always trained to see the normal, so that when you see the abnormal, you're able to say,
exactly,
even though I can identify it, but something is wrong here. This is not the way it's supposed to be. Now he looks in, checks those structure, the optic disc cup, the heights, if there's any deviation from normal. Then he measures what we call the pressure, which is what we call the intraocular pressure, the pressure inside the eye. Very, very important. Now that pressure, the normal standard pressure is 10 millimeters of mercury to 21 millimeters of mercury.
That's in and out.
No. That's the expected. Just like in your blood pressure, you have 120 over 80 millimeters of mercury. For the eye, it's 10 millimeters of mercury to 21 millimeters of mercury. It shouldn't be too much. But now, research has further found out that it's an individualistic thing as well. You have some people where 17 is dangerous for them because their cornea is too thin. So there are other tests we call pachymetry, what we call the central corneal thickness or the global corneal thickness, which shows that because of the thinness of the cornea, that pressure is too high to sustain that particular eyeball. So that's why I said it's on a case by case.
So can these pressures be reduced or
increased?
With
drugs. Yes, with drugs. Usually the first line of treatment is drugs. Okay, this is not what you treat at home. You can't ask me, what do I do at home?
Exactly.
What you do at home is get your shoes on and get to the hospital.
And we need to check you.
Yes, and then you want to check, make sure whoever is, attending to you knows what he or she is doing. Usually it's very difficult. There's no way you can just look at this person and say, he's a good doctor. But of course we have the general hospitals, we have the health centers, where at least there's some basic level of, security there. Now, when drugs fail, there are different kinds of surgeries. Okay, there's the trabeculectomy, there's the trabeculoplasty. Now, these are just some. Glaucoma treatments are over 100. That's to tell you how tough it is to handle it. That's where, if you see the optometrist sees that, drugs can no longer handle this, or maybe the pressure is just so high and they need intervention, they refer to the ophthalmologist, and then and even in ophthalmology there are specialists in retina issues and glaucoma ophthalmologists that can now look critically on a case-by-case basis. This one is defiant, maybe this one has neovascular glaucoma or this, and then we need to change strategy and see how, all to prevent needless blindness.
Wow, it looks like I need to take a course on this now because it's so sweet the way you put it, and it's so amazing how you've broken it down for us to understand. But these are the realities actually of our daily living, where people ignore these things and don't know that they're going through some kind of a stage of these challenges. Dr. John Samsedi, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
It's a week-long event,
yes,
and we hope to have you again to look at other correctional and preventive, strategies that we all need to use.
Yeah, thank you. And I also want to chip this in as we round up.
Okay.
Most eye clinics are offering free glaucoma screening at least in Lagos today, and I'm sure nationwide, because there is usually that appeal from the national president and of course from the state level that clinics should, at least for those who cannot afford it, just have, even if it's just the IOP test and the ophthalmoscope test. Most clinics are doing the free eye screening. And that's what we really call, go to the clinics and let them have a thorough examination. I mean, I remember one time we had a program in one of the stations. Okay. I'm rounding up now, I can understand. And one of the people in the studio had glaucoma. One had retinitis pigmentosa, and they didn't know. Thank you very much.
Wow. Dr. Sam Sedi, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We certainly will partner towards creating more awareness for the people.
Thank you very much.
Right.